And for someone who wasn't touched the first 2 months, is that so vital for you today to have that connection?
Yes, I love hugging. I can't hug long enough.
Every challenge holds a story. Every struggle is a spark. Welcome to A Legend Forged, where athletes, heroes, and fearless fighters of disability defy the odds and rewrite the rules. Learn to live an unfiltered life with the unstoppable Aron O'Dowd. A Legend Forged begins now.
Empathy, emotions is so important how we interact with the world. It's our hidden blueprint of what we do and who we are. And today's guest, wow, executive producer of the LA Tribune, the queen of empathy, the emotional intelligence coach. This woman has some incredible things, and she is the depth of emotion and empathy. Hello, welcome to the show, Karen Hall. How are you doing?
Hello, Aaron. So good to be with you. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Um, Tell us why people call you the queen of empathy.
Well, I'm an emotional intelligence leadership coach, and as I was coaching clients, I was trying to figure out how to brand myself, and so I held all these focus groups, and I gave people questionnaires to describe things about me and what I did, and every single person put empathy down. And when we got together in the focus group, they all started commenting on that. They're like, yeah, she's so empathetic and she has so much empathy, blah, blah, blah. And then one person said, you should call yourself the queen of empathy. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can say that. And they said, yes, you can. And so I was like, okay. So they said, you have more empathy than anyone we've ever met. And it just really touched my heart because I do care deeply. And so that's how that name came about. I was given that nickname.
And I bet you're bundled of empathy and emotion, right?
Yes, I am a bundle of empathy and emotion. I'm an empath, and I'm also an HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. So yeah, that's a really good way to describe me, a bundle of emotions and empathy.
Were you always like this in your life?
Yes, I have always been this way. I feel things very deeply. And so I was born 2.5 months premature, and I was in an incubator all by myself. My mom couldn't feed me or hold me or anything. And as a result, when I came out and I was, they sent me home with my mom. I had anxiety and I was a worrier, and I was always I felt things so deeply, and my mom was always trying to encourage me, to help me, and it was hard for her to understand my emotions because I did feel things so deeply, and she worried about me. But anyway, I learned how to turn that into a positive thing. I remember when my dad helped me to understand that it was a gift that I was so sensitive. He said, you have the ability to understand how people feel so quickly. You can tune into that. And that was a powerful moment for me because I would go back and default to negative thinking about myself, thinking there was something wrong with me for feeling so sensitive. And then I would remember what my dad said, and I would be like, oh no, it's actually a strength, and this actually helps me in life because I can discern things, and then I have to know how to deal with it. And that, because I do feel things so deeply, what I learned that is really interesting is it's part of the genetic wiring. I thought it was because of what I experienced in life, but it really is more genetically, just the way that my brain and my body are wired. And that was very helpful for me also to realize that there are all kinds of species that they can do the testing on now to find that they are HSPs. And I'm like, wow, you know, animals and all kinds of different creatures in the world are HSPs. So I'm just one of them.
Wow, I joined that group and then sometimes think, am I crazy? Am I this? Am I not? But what you just described has made complete sense for me. So you never know until you know, you know?
I know when I took the test and I realized that, I was like, check, check, check. Yes, that's me. That's me. That's me. And then when I realized there were more people like me, oh, it was so comforting, because I did feel like I was an alien because I felt things so differently than other people. So to find another person like you, Aron, is just so comforting to my soul.
It sure is, and I bet you when you have conversations, meeting, your whole system's like, say this, don't say this, da, da, da. And it's like the coyote trying to catch the roadrunner at the same time, you know?
I can't, even if I tell myself not to say something, I can't help it. It just comes out.
And how does that feel to be so empathic in the world?
There are some times where it is a challenge, because sometimes I take on other people's emotions, and I have to allow them to feel the way they feel, and say it's okay if they feel that way. And I don't have to take that on myself, because I just naturally feel it so deeply. It sometimes it feels like it's me, and I realize, no, that's them. And I can let them have that emotion. And sometimes I feel bad when somebody feels a negative feeling, and sometimes I feel guilty. And I have to say, no, that's their issue. That's not mine. And that's taken a lot of practice for myself, so that I can regulate my own emotions and own my own emotions and separate their emotions from me. But for the majority of the time, it's a joyous experience, because like when I feel, happy about something, like my husband and I were just watching a documentary on ESPN. So it's a sports figure. I'm not really into sports, but this story came up, and I'm just crying and crying about this sports figure. And my husband is like, honey, we went to see the movie Formula One, and
Oh, I'm looking forward to watching it. Don't tell me anything.
oh yeah, I won't tell you anything, but I will tell you it's an intense show. And we've seen so many movies that have been just really intense. And I get so connected with the character. I feel like I'm the character. I become the character in the movie, and I am just crying. And this is a racing show, for goodness sakes. But I just love the overcoming story, and it was just like so inspiring to me. And nobody else in the theater's crying, but I'm over here crying. And that happens all the time. It just happens all the time. In fact, after I watch a movie, I have to go research the rest of the story, because I feel so deeply about it. And I can't watch any intense shows in the evening. I have to watch them early in the day, because I can't sleep afterward, because I feel it so deeply, and it takes me a while to regulate my nervous system. But I also remember things, and that's something that is also very unique, because, like, for example, I write in a journal, and if I go back and read a journal entry from years ago that I can't remember, I can feel the emotion just like it happened to me. And other things that I can remember just bring me so much joy. So I relive the joy again and again and again, which amplifies my joy. It doesn't just happen. It's not like Christmas once. It's like Christmas again and again and again.
Or instead of having reels on the internet, you have reels in your mind through your journal.
I do. And I get tickled by things. Like, I was telling somebody the other day that I'm kind of like Dudley Moore. My husband will say, who are you talking to in the other room? And I'm like, nobody, I'm just having a funny thought to myself. And I just enjoy life. I just find I just get humor out of easy little things that happen, just make me laugh. And I love being alive. I am so grateful to be alive. It's a miracle that I'm alive, and I feel that miracle on a regular basis.
What do you love about speaking to people? Because I know you love writing and interviewing and talking to people. So what do you love about them?
I love it because I feel like I make a new friend every time I interact with people. And when I'm interviewing them, I get these questions that come to my mind that I feel are divine. And I often will ask things, and they'll tell me stories, and they'll say, I've never told anyone that story before. And that makes me feel so much joy in my heart, that they trusted me, that they felt safe enough to tell me a story that was so meaningful. And then I can share that with other people, either through publishing their story, or by allowing them to publicly speak about their story. And because sometimes I host them on events. And then the other thing, when I'm the speaker and I'm speaking, if I'm being interviewed, I connect with the person. But if I'm speaking to a group and the light bulbs go off or on, I guess on, and I see their little eyes light up, it makes me so happy because we connect. And for me, connection is like air. And I think that's because of my premature birth, because I didn't have anybody to connect with for that 2.5 months. And so I love being connected to people. And so when I speak and I share with them something that I've learned and something that has helped me, and I see them relate, somehow it resonates within them, I feel a bond with them. And I also feel so grateful, because if I can help somebody not suffer the way that I have suffered in my life by teaching them something that I learned so they can apply it sooner, oh, that just makes me so happy. It makes me so, so happy, because some of the things, it's taken me a long time to learn. Some things I still haven't learned yet, and I'm still working on things. And so if I can help someone else learn quicker than I did to have greater happiness and fulfillment in their life, I feel like that's why I'm here, is to help people have greater love, to remember their divine identity and remember, why they're here.
Is spirituality important for you in what you do?
Vital. It's 100% the most important thing that I do. And so one of my podcasts is called The Hero Within. And each guest, we talk about how they have overcome adversity. And they're unsung heroes. They're not celebrities or anything. And every single person, as they describe what they have gone through and how they've navigated challenges in their life and found hope, they all have a spiritual element to their story. And I just celebrate that with them. I celebrate that they recognize that. And sometimes I help them recognize that. But then I celebrate with them the joy that brings to them, to know that they have a connection in some way with spirituality, that sometimes people call it the universe, or they'll say their higher power or love or whatever, or sometimes people say God, or whatever term they use, but we're all talking the same language, and we all know that there's something greater than us, and we're being helped here on our mortal existence.
Awesome. And do you feel and understand your mission of being here on this planet?
Yes. I think that, oh my goodness, that is such a great question, because I have been told that, from, it's a divine download, that my mission is to encourage people to remember who they really are and to help them see that in themselves. And that, just even saying that out loud to you, Aron, just brings me joy, because when I can help someone remember who they are and encourage them to be aligned with that in their life, I just feel joy. I just feel so much joy. And that's a goal that I have for myself, is to remember who I am and to be aligned, with who I am and what my mission is, and how to implement that on a daily basis. And so, in a nutshell, that's why I'm here.
And how do you bring all of this impact and emotion and empathy to your work?
Well, I do it when I'm interviewing people. I even do it when I'm trying to put together an event. For example, I had an event. It was called the Global Women's Leadership Symposium. And I wanted to hear from all these women leaders about their stories and how they had led, and the challenges that they had faced. And we had the most spiritual leadership event. It was a 14-hour day. And the cohesion between all the different speakers from all different countries and all different walks of life was amazing. There was this incredible unity. And I felt, because I felt this feeling of what the whole theme of the event should be. And then each person, I didn't even know what they were going to share beforehand, because I didn't give them questions, and it was all organic, and it all just flowed. It was the most incredible thing. And they noticed it and they felt it and they commented on it and the audience commented on it. So it made me really happy. But the thing that, when I'm using those superpowers with people, it just happens as a divine experience for me. It's not something that there have been times where I wanted it to happen, but there was a barrier of some kind and it hasn't flowed. And when it doesn't, it's challenging for me because I just feel I have to work to remove that. And that's an interesting process too, because I'll be like, I sense that there's something going on here, what is happening? And to be able to find ways to build that trust is very important to me. I want to be able to have that with people so that we can both be in flow. I want it to be a two-way experience. And in writing, the same thing happens. I'll have a person write a story to be published and I'll send it back and I'll say, I feel like there's something more here. I want to know more. Let's peel back the layers a little bit more. And they'll send me back the next revision. I'm like, there's still something there. And finally, after like 7 or 8 revisions, they'll finally be willing to be vulnerable. And I'll be like, bingo, we got it. There's the story that we're looking for. And that's what I want to share. And that comes out in the stories that I publish and in the interviews that I host and when I speak as well.
Why are stories so important for you?
Well, storytelling is something that we've done since the beginning of time. And the way that we learn is with an emotional connection. And stories is how we create that emotional connection. If I just told you facts about me, they would just escape through your brain. But if you felt a feeling when I told you a story, that would stick with you. And so that's how we learn. That's how we progress. That's how we accomplish things in life, is through stories. And stories have been handed down before they were, writing. They were, even the pictures were a story. And so now to be able to express ourselves either verbally or in, publishing our story is what draws the person in, and that's what connects us. Connection is so vital for not only the feeling of well-being and for our mental health and for life. We can't survive without connection. We do not live without connection. And I remember when I was studying about the power of connection, where babies during the war, they were orphaned and they were in orphanages, and they had so many of the babies. It was during communism in Romania. They didn't have enough caregivers. And so they just lined these babies up in cribs and they would feed them. They'd prop them up with bottles and change the diapers. So they were taking care of their physical needs, but they were dying. And they died because nobody touched them. They were not bonded with someone. And I was like, oh, that could have happened to me. I could have died during that 2.5 months because my mother didn't get to touch me. Miraculously, I lived. But that power of touch, that power of connection is vital, and it's healing, and it gives us the energy that we need to live. So I worked as a dietitian and in a dialysis unit. And so if you touch a patient, you have to wash your hands and everything. Well, they would say to me, stop touching the patients. I'm like, I'm washing my hands. And they're like, could you stop touching them? And so then I would touch their, like sometimes I would touch their arm or whatever. So then I would just pat their, on the top of their blanket and go wash my hands. And they just were always telling me, could you stop touching the patients? So I'm like, I can't. I can't do it. Even during COVID, I was just, even elbows. I had to touch elbows. I had to do something to make a connection with somebody. That's just how I am. But you're right, Aron. Touch is extremely important to me.
What has been your biggest challenge in your life so far?
My biggest challenge is dealing with disconnection. It is so painful for me. It is excruciating to me, and learning to deal with that and be okay, that it's not catastrophic. If there's disconnection, and that we will figure this out. We will reconnect in some way at some point in time. Sometimes people have things that are going on in their life that are a barrier to them being able to connect, and to be accepting of that, and love them from afar. As there have been people that I feel connected with from afar, and it feels like we're disconnected, and I have to remember that their spirit still is connected to my spirit, even if physically we are in a totally different country or whatever, and maybe emotionally there's some disconnect there. I can still send them love, and that is so comforting to me. But disconnection is the most challenging thing I deal with.
Do you still have that challenge on and off today, or have you overcome it?
No, I still have it today. I still work on it. It's an immediate default of an alarm goes off in my body, and then I have to work. And now I have tools where I can regulate my nervous system. But that is something that it happens. It still happens. But now I know how to deal with it, and I can overcome it much more quickly than I used to. But it still happens. Yeah.
Why?
I think it's the fear, the primal fear, as a baby being alone. And I think that fear of being alone just overtakes me, because I don't think that with a preverbal trauma, it's very difficult to process it, because you didn't have words to describe it back then. You didn't have any way to process it. And so I think it still comes up for me. And I think that for most people, disconnection is a huge trigger. And most people don't know that. Most people wouldn't say that. But for most people, I think that that's a very, very common trigger.
You're an executive producer at the LA Tribune. Tell us how you got into that.
So I started with my podcast, The Hero Within, and then they invited me to be the executive director of the Women's Journal. So I started doing that and publishing people's stories. And then I was speaking at events, and they said, "Would you like to host?" And I said, "Well, sure. I love interviewing people." And so I started interviewing, and they noticed that connection that I had with people, and guests started asking for me specifically to interview them. And they said, "Well, would you like to be an assistant producer?" And I said, "Well, sure." And then I did that. And then they said, "Would you like to produce your own event?" I said, "Absolutely." And that was the icing on the cake, because then I could pick the theme of the event that I felt that people in the audience wanted to hear about. And then I could also, with all the different connections that I had, I was able to invite people to speak. And so it's just been so much fun. I have just loved it. And now I'm producing events for other people as well. So it's just a very inspiring experience for me. I feel so uplifted every time. And I feel such a connection with every single guest. So it makes me feel so happy. And I feel connected with the audience. So like the person that craves connection, it's like the ultimate. I just get all this connection.
What do you think they saw on you to bring you on further and further?
Well, they told me that they saw my energy that came out, because I just spoke from the heart, and I didn't have everything memorized, and it wasn't perfect, but it was organic. And somehow they felt the energy, and they told me that was what drew them in. And so they wanted to have me do that with other people.
I wonder what's the biggest lesson you've ever learned in your life?
The biggest lesson I've ever learned is probably, for me personally, the biggest lesson I ever learned was that my sensitivity was not a flaw, that it was a gift, and that it is my superpower. Because that took me a while to understand that. Even after my dad told me that, I didn't really understand it, because he didn't say it in those words. He didn't say, "Your sensitivity is a superpower." If he wouldn't, I might have picked up on it a little quicker. But he complimented it, and he recognized it, and he told me how I was picking up on things. And then when I realized, oh, this is so helpful, because I can tell that, this other thing that other people aren't picking up on. As a dietitian, many times I could detect what my patients were feeling and what their fears were. And I was able to address those things so that quickly we could, talk about how we could have joy in life still, even though they had, this disease they were dealing with. So I felt like I was able to use that.
Sometimes we forget who we are and we want to run 1,000 miles, even though we're empathic and we feel people. We just want to feel normal. Is that how you felt growing up and through your life?
Yes, I remember when people would say, why do you feel things so, why are you so sensitive? And they're always saying, get over it. Like if I got my feelings hurt, it took me a while to regulate my emotions. People were always trying to get me to regulate quicker. And I felt terrible that I couldn't regulate quicker. And I remember when Frozen came out, let it go, let it go. I was like, that's what I've been saying my whole life. Just let it go, Karen. And when I realized that there's a healthy way of letting go, but it's a process, and I had to love myself through that process and say, it's okay if it takes me longer than it does someone else. That's part of my superpower, because I feel things so deeply. And the other thing about being an HSP is because we feel things so deeply and we remember things, we can learn things. And so that aids us in future experiences, because we can draw upon the things that we have learned and then actually be ahead, because we're like, oh yeah, I remember that thing that helps me in this future situation. So HSPs make very powerful leaders because of their ability to be in tune and to remember and feel things so deeply.
Thank you so much, Karen. Karen, where can people find to get to play with you and explore with you and deep dive with you?
Yes, so anybody can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Karen Hall, Queen of Empathy. There's a lot of Karen Halls. So make sure you put Karen Hall, Queen of Empathy. And that's the best way to find me. And just send me a message. And I would love to connect, because as you know, connection is like air for me. So please connect. I would love that. And I would love to help people to share their story. I didn't say this, but one of the things that's interesting for me is that people heal their trauma as they share their story, as they speak their story, and as they write their story. They have to tap into and overcome different parts of themselves. And through that process, they heal that trauma. So I encourage everyone to experience that healing and that joy that comes from sharing their story.
Karen, it's been a blast, a pleasure. Thank you so much. And for sure, you are definitely the Queen of Empathy. I can take that box off and put that in your badge, and there's your sticker. So thank you so much.
Well, Aron, thank you for wanting to know my story. Thank you for being interested. I love the Aron O'Dowd Show and how you want to know people's stories. So anyone out there, be sure to be a guest with Aron O'Dowd, because he's wonderful, a wonderful listener. That's one of your superpowers, Aron. So thank you so much.